She didn't even blink when she said it. Tammy stared into the camera and accused her sister of one of the coldest betrayals fans have ever seen on reality TV. According to her, Amy didn't just lie. She sold the house. Not their childhood house. Not a fixer-upper. We're talking about the one home Tammy believed was hers. A mansion worth $10 million, allegedly signed away while she was still recovering from her hardest health battle yet. It wasn't a storyline. It was a knife to the ribs. Welcome back to Sister Wives Daily. I'm Sarah. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more exclusive breakdowns and emotional realness in every twist. And tell me in the comments, do you believe Tammy? Or is something else going on under the surface? Because this wasn't just a disagreement. This wasn't a family spat over bills or attitude or old grudges. This was a level-up scandal. It pulled the entire season off its normal orbit, launching the sisters from small-town relatability into full-fledged reality TV chaos. And the scariest part? Nobody seems to have solid proof of who's telling the truth yet. Cut back to the scene and you can almost feel the weight in the air. Tammy's tone wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. You could tell she meant every word. The betrayal, the paperwork, the mansion, it all rolled out like a secret she'd been holding in for months. Amy's reaction? Quiet at first, then defensive, and then flat denial. She claimed she never stole, never sold, never sneaked around. But the tension didn't leave the room for a second. Even their brother stood there like he saw a ghost. Because if Tammy was right, somebody in the family forged documents, pushed a deal, and sold her dream from right under her. But what if the betrayal wasn't even about money? What if the real war was over control? Now here's the messy part. The ownership history of that house? It's fuzzy. Public records list payment sources and partial names, but never flat-out confirm whose name is on the deed. Conflicting clips from older episodes confuse the situation even more. In one scene, Amy refers to the house as ours. In another, she says Tammy wasn't ready to manage it on her own. But then again, Tammy's social media from that time had her proudly flexing the place like it was her personal achievement. Some fans say that it's possible both sisters were technically on the papers, maybe with a third party managing the logistics. Others have gone full detective mode, zooming into mail on the counters, looking for clues in footage from episodes 2 seasons back. One person even claimed they saw real estate paperwork peeking out from a freezer shot. That's how wild this has gotten. And then there's the timing. When exactly did all of this happen? Some fans tracked the dates and believe the sale, if it did happen, lines up with a quiet few weeks when Amy was posting more selfies than parenting content, and Tammy was radio silent. Coincidental? Maybe. But reality TV rarely gives us coincidences without purpose. Think about what Tammy's been through. From the ICU bed to a brutal rehab journey. When she came home, her mobility changed. Her perspective changed. And apparently, so did her understanding of what was going on behind the scenes of her most prized possession. That house wasn't just shelter. It was a symbol of survival, stability, and self-respect. After years of people doubting whether she'd walk again, gain independence, or even live, that mansion became the throne to a comeback story. And to see it allegedly vanish without her full consent, it cracked something open. On the flip side, Amy's life wasn't exactly smooth either. Balancing boys, separation, financial stress, and an online audience thirsty for perfection, she's been under stress too. But the question remains, was desperation enough of a motive to push her to allegedly do something this reckless? There's an old clip where Amy jokes about owning everything in the family. It aged like milk. What makes all this even murkier is the silence from the network. No formal press release. No clarification on camera. Just producers filming the mess, satisfied letting the audience spiral into theory wars. And it's working. Every third comment online is someone certain they solved the plot. But facts? Still foggy. And now fans are picking sides. Team Tammy says this is a blatant betrayal. Team Amy says we don't know the full picture. But no matter where you stand, one thing is crystal clear. The sisters are no longer on the same page. Not emotionally, not financially, not even contractually. We've seen them fight before. Over men, makeup, fried food, even haunted dolls. But this time, the stakes are on a different planet. There's an edge in Tammy's voice that says she won't forgive this one so easily. The mansion meant more than wallpaper and square footage. It meant she finally earned something of her own. If that was ripped away during her weakest moment, who wouldn't be enraged? The question now is, Was this just a paperwork mix-up or a premeditated push to erase Tammy's power? We haven't even scratched the surface of the receipts that fans say are starting to emerge. Screenshots, interview clips, inconsistencies all turning up like breadcrumbs, and if even one of them turns out to be real, this might go way beyond family drama. Because the difference between stealing and strategizing. That's the fine line Amy may be walking right now, with a jail threat on one side and a sympathy wave on the other. And somewhere in the middle sits a $10 million mystery no one seems ready to solve. The most chilling part of this entire story, fans didn't believe it until they started digging. And once they did, they didn't stop. Forget rumors. We're talking timestamps, title searches, video clips people watched years ago suddenly being rewatched like they were court evidence. Amy claims she didn't touch Tammy's mansion. She says she had nothing to do with any sale, that she wouldn't even know how to do something like that. But here's the kicker, she clearly had full access. Not just physically, financially, emotionally. From the outside, it looked like Tammy entrusted Amy with more than her keys while she was away for treatment. She gave her sister responsibility. And that's what makes the whole thing even harder to unpack. Responsibility isn't something you give lightly when your house is worth 7 or 8 figures, depending on who's estimating. And yes, the house is real. Google Maps, outdated Zillow listings, fan photos with the same stone columns and circular driveway. It's there, sitting in Kentucky like a heavyweight character in its own right. Used to be, fans watched inside filming locations from the show without question. No one really cared who owned what. Now those same floor tiles. Scrutinized for signs of betrayal. Here comes the legal smoke. Public records reveal transactions from a real estate trust scheduled not long before Tammy moved into rehab. One of the names associated allegedly connects back to a family LLC. Now we're not going to repeat names, paper trails aren't personalities, but the implication alone lit a fire among fans. The mansion went quiet online. No Instagram photos, no filming updates, no family gathering hashtags, just gone. And then something happened. Old vloggers, fan archivists, the kind of people who screen record every season and file it like it's Game of Thrones lore, they started pulling receipts. In one clip filmed almost 18 months ago, Amy casually walks through the house. She says, "You know, my pantry's too small for the boys," while pointing at shelves previously shown in Tammy's kitchen. Simple line. Maybe innocent in the moment. But now, it feels like foreshadowing. There's footage Amy never expected fans to notice, until now. Other clips show Amy speaking about bills and maintenance, referencing monthly expenses viewers assumed were about her own home. But when cross-compared with timestamps and the background kitchen colors, it turned out she was talking inside the mansion. Suddenly, comments flooded in. Why is she paying monthly expenses in a house that isn't hers? Did Tammy know about this? When did the switch happen? And the clues stack up. A now-deleted Facebook photo from Amy's account shows her boys playing in what looks like the backyard of the mansion, with a caption hinting this was the new normal. That post lasted less than 48 hours online before vanishing. Can't confirm the meaning behind that, but it sure didn't go unnoticed. Let's talk access. Did Amy have access to the legal documents? In theory, yes. We know she helped Tammy with paperwork in the past, medical, transportation, even early YouTube deals. It wouldn't shock anyone if she had been given access to housing papers as a trusted contact. It happens all the time in families where one sibling handles the logistics. But with trust comes temptation, and with temptation comes suspicion, especially with dollar signs involved. Because a $10 million house, that's not a casual paperwork error, that's a tectonic financial move. Someone had to authorize it. Someone had to sign. And while we don't have screenshots of that signature, the rising tension came from how confident Tammy was when she dropped the bomb. You don't go on international TV and accuse your sister of corporate-level theft unless you believe what you're saying. But even that brings us to the weirdest twist. Tammy may believe it happened, but does believing it make it real? One side of the fandom says yes, she was clearly cut out. The other says Tammy might have been emotionally manipulated by outside voices, using her recovery time as a narrative trap. A way to make her suspicious of everything when her life was already turned upside down. And that's the scariest possibility. Not that Amy sold the house, but that someone else convinced Tammy she did, and now both sisters are stuck choosing between loyalty and legalities. Some fans even noticed Amy had a subtle wardrobe change during that time. Designer brands creeping in, more polished looks, a glow-up that seemed tied to access, not hustle. Internet detectives have been pulling transaction histories on sister-adjacent online stores and resale platforms, comparing dates and deliveries. Are we reaching yet? Maybe. But in a show built on raw emotion, people don't want facts, they chase patterns. And the patterns say, something shifted. And here's where it takes another turn. A cousin allegedly hinted in a blurry TikTok live that there were talks about changing the names on the house. Naturally, that clip was deleted, but not before it was saved, reposted, and slowed down by fans who zoomed in like it was a Zapruder film. Right now, all we have are pieces, video slips, emotional reactions, passive-aggressive reposts. But that doesn't mean the document doesn't exist. And if someone, somewhere, has even one signed transfer form with Amy's name near the dotted line, then Tammy's accusation is more than a feud. It's a claim that could land in court. And the fans, they're not looking away. They've turned into auditors with opinions. Everything from utility records to furniture moves are being weaponized into theory threads. Which raises the bigger question, who planted the first seed? Did Amy act shady before there was ever a mansion, or did the money make everyone paranoid? Because let's face it, trust breaks fast when property's involved. And once a sibling feels like they have to Google their own deed, the scars don't fade easy. This feud has stopped being about what's provable. It's about what's believable. And when your family reputation is on the line, the truth is only half the battle. It's what people choose to see that burns the longest. The best lies are the ones dressed up as loyalty. That's the energy fans are feeling right now, and not because they want to see the Slaton sisters torn apart, but because, for a long time, they believed their bond was bulletproof. These weren't just siblings, they were each other's lifelines. But something snapped, and it didn't happen overnight. The story most people knew was simple. Amy always looked out for Tammy. She drove her to appointments, helped with food, cleaned up behind her, and even took the heat when Tammy lashed out. So when that trust started showing cracks, it rattled longtime viewers. What could possibly flip that connection from caretaking to courtroom-level accusations? Rewind to the moment that fans now treat like a loaded gun. A sweet, funny, throwaway clip of Amy trying to pick out curtains. In the video, Tammy is sitting silently in the background, barely speaking. Amy holds up swatches and talks about making it feel more like home, laughing with the boys running around in the background. Harmless until someone noticed that wasn't Amy's home. The wallpaper, classic mansion trim, the staircase curve, matched the blueprints fans had circulated for months. So why was Amy designing a home that wasn't hers? And that's when things started to feel off. The turning point nobody expected came when fans looked back on a moment they originally loved. That quirky chaos from season 6, when Amy hosted a barbecue and Tammy arrived late, visibly frustrated. Now, in context, Tammy's mood wasn't about being tired. In hindsight, some believe she just found out she wasn't the only one using the mansion kitchen. That barbecue. Possibly the first time she realized control was slipping through her fingers. From then on, Amy's vibes started shifting. There was the new confidence, the slightly sharper tone in certain interviews, the increased time away from family events. Her TikTok presence grew bolder. Instagram captions went from funny mom content to veiled shade and do you, boo energy. She looked freer. But freedom always comes at a price, and that's exactly what worried fans who were paying attention. One old video comment might hold the biggest clue of all. In a now-archived YouTube vlog, a fan asked Amy, "Who keeps the house while Tammy's in rehab?" And she replied with a crying laugh emoji and said, "I'm the captain now." At the time, people thought it was hilarious. But now, that line's taken on a whole new meaning. Was it just a joke, or was it a quiet reveal of something already at play? Social behavior doesn't lie. Amy used to post and tag Tammy constantly. After the mansion madness started bubbling up, not a single shot of Tammy appeared for weeks. No stories, no shout-outs, no birthday throwback, nothing. Like she was airbrushed out of her digital life. And when fans asked, Amy dodged, saying things like, "We're all just focusing on our own stuff," or "Tammy's got her journey." Cryptic, calculated. Now place yourself in Tammy's shoes. You come home from months of fighting for your life, the door opens, and nothing looks the same. Furniture moved, decorations tweaked, bedrooms cleared, contracts closed, and the one person you trusted most suddenly treats your questions like interruptions. What's cold isn't just what she allegedly did, it's how little explanation came after. And that's the difference here. Skeptics might say Tammy's being paranoid, but doesn't she at least deserve clarity? Especially from someone who once called her my reason for surviving childhood. You don't just wake up and accuse someone of theft unless something feels off in your bones. The real betrayal here might not be in what was sold. It's in how both sisters handled the silence. The way whispers replaced conversations. The way fans had to piece together the fallout based on who wasn't in each other's photos. Those gaps speak louder than the drama. Because a betrayal doesn't always come wrapped in a fight. Sometimes it comes in a long pause, a missed call, or a door that used to be open now mysteriously locked. And that window Amy had while Tammy was out of the house. That silence, that freedom, that lack of accountability. It might have made things too easy. Whether it was misjudgment, opportunity, or manipulation by someone else, what happened during Tammy's rehab could be the answer to this whole mess. And the question fans keep asking is, when did the shift begin? Because somewhere between funny curtain shopping and quiet ownership transitions, something big changed. Something neither sister may be able to take back. Meanwhile, Tammy was out of the loop. Literally. Sequestered in rehab, no phone, no filming, no family contact at times. Her focus was survival, getting stronger, breathing better, walking again. We saw the transformation in real time. But in the background, her house, a status symbol, pride, maybe even motivation, was being subtly rebranded. The cracks in their relationship surfaced not in big explosive scenes, but in micro moments. Tammy checking her phone with a dead stare after a phone call. Amy rushing to explain things before Tammy could even speak. These weren't full fights, but they screamed of discomfort. Because trust doesn't usually shatter all at once, it leaks and then bursts. Then came the travel gap. Amy started taking more solo trips or popping up in different states with influencers. Posts tagged in Tennessee, California. No Tammy in sight. Mind you, this is right after Tammy allegedly gave her permission to watch over things while she focused on recovery. Watching the house and watching ownership aren't the same thing. Here's where the cracks stop being emotional and start getting suspicious. Because when you look closely at the timeline Amy's kind of implied, and the timeline Tammy's clearly believing, they don't match. And that makes everything murky fast. The sale, if it even happened in the way Tammy describes, would have landed smack in the middle of Amy's most chaotic months. Not just on-screen drama, but real-life stuff. Emotional unraveling. Financial tightness. Personal changes that stacked up like dominoes waiting to fall. Let's lay it out. Around the exact window Tammy was deep into rehab, we're talking multiple months committed to recovery. Amy was coming off the high of internet stardom while quietly unraveling. Publicly, she was smiling, dancing in TikToks, calling herself finally free. Privately, insiders say her separation from Michael was more than messy. There were payment disputes, health concerns, custody stress. Fans noticed the tension before she said a word. Her content shifted. The boys were barely in the frame anymore. Her tone got sharper, her captions more cryptic, and the filters brighter than ever. When life gets ugly, people usually reach for gloss. And glossy distractions, they cost money. New places, new clothes, new hair, new attitude. All while allegedly scrambling behind the scenes to balance legal costs and multiple household expenses. Amy's main revenue stream, at least visibly, was the show. But Season 7 didn't pay blockbuster salaries, and influencer gigs only stretch so far when you're nursing a public image and private breakdown. So when fans started connecting those dots, timing, silence, upgrades, it begged the question, did Amy, in a moment of pressure, make a deal she thought no one would notice? If she did, she likely didn't do it alone. There's one person strangely quiet through all this, and that silence is almost louder than the fight. Let's talk about the presence no one's naming outright, Amy's new inner circle. Right after Tammy entered rehab, Amy was suddenly photographed more often with a close friend-turned-partner. Someone fans initially defended as laid-back and supportive, but somewhere along the way, that support turned strategic. People noticed background appearances in story posts from inside the mansion before Amy claimed it was ever hers, and those came months before the alleged transfer. The most suspicious part, not what he said, but what he didn't. Never once defended Amy openly, never disputed Tammy's claims, no on-camera clarifications or social media pushback. Nothing. If you're the partner of someone being publicly accused of $1 million lie, wouldn't you speak up to squash it? Unless silence was part of the strategy. And there's another theory: influence from business advisors or background handlers. Certain YouTube and reality personalities at their peak often bring in casual managers. A cousin, a spouse, a friend who suddenly handles emails, contracts, outreach. At first, it looks like relief. Later, it looks like risk. Because when people don't fully understand ownership law, property rights, or how fast rumors turn into lawsuits, tiny decisions blow up into family breakdowns. There were also whispers of tax problems. Nothing on paper, no confirmed details, but enough scuttle online that people began asking, was Amy feeling heat from the IRS? Was the mansion a way out? If someone dangled an offer in front of her, a fast sale, a simple signature, and instant relief, maybe she justified it as the smartest move in a bad moment. Especially if she believed Tammy wouldn't notice, or couldn't legally challenge it, depending on what she'd signed earlier. But then the contradictions started showing. In one video, Amy said she hadn't touched the house since Tammy moved out. In the very next interview, she slips and refers to being there every weekend with the kids. Inconsistencies like that don't scream guilt, but they do raise eyebrows. Especially when the house was allegedly listed, shown to buyers, or, according to Reddit sleuths, briefly registered as off-market, private seller in housing databases around that exact time. Fans dragged up timelines faster than production could clip footage. Cross-referencing when Amy wore certain outfits in social posts versus when the mansion filming was shown, trying to nail down exact days when the switch might have happened. People noticed furniture disappearing between scenes, walls suddenly bare, decor shifted. And while none of that is proof, it's enough to pull emotional investment out of the audience and inject obsession. Because this wasn't just drama anymore. This was a puzzle. And the more pieces that surfaced, the less the picture cleared up. And while we're here, where was the network through all this? Camera crews were obviously present during huge parts of both Tammy's recovery and Amy's post-marriage chaos, yet none of these missing details were shown. Was it choice, editing, or legal protection? Either way, it left fans stuck speculating between reaction clips and leaked TikToks. The timing curves even sharper when you bring in financial documents. Analysts looking at the approximate value of the mansion, based on location, say the $10 million number sounds inflated, possibly used for shock factor. But still, even a smaller number would have made this a six-figure conflict, far bigger than anything the sisters have ever publicly handled before. Is it possible this was less of a betrayal and more of a panic move? Because if Amy was standing in a pile of debt, raising two sons largely alone, unsure whether her next check was guaranteed, and suddenly holding keys to a mansion, a property tied to someone technically in long-term care, it's not wild to think someone in her orbit pitched a plan she couldn't refuse. Does it make it right? Of course not. But it might explain how the love between two sisters turned liquid and got poured into a deal that neither fully understood before the damage kicked in. By the time the confrontation hit the screen, nobody could breathe. You felt it coming, the raised voices, the tension crawling up everyone's spine, but nothing prepared fans for how messy it really got once the words started flying. The episode opened like everything was normal, just another family sit-down. But the minute Tammy walked in and locked eyes with Amy, it was game over. She didn't yell. Not right away, anyway. First came the look. The one only sisters understand. It said, "I know something, and I'm not here to play nice." Amy tried to brush it off with her usual dry humor, tossing out a line about how stressed she was. But Tammy didn't flinch. She took one long breath, stared dead into her sister's face, and asked, point blank, "Why did I hear my house was sold?" It wasn't scripted. That wasn't a setup line. That was real. You could see the crew cringing behind the camera. Amy froze. She blinked like she hadn't rehearsed an answer. And that's when everything came unglued. Tammy's voice rose, controlled but heavy. She threw down names, dates. She wouldn't say where she heard it, but she made it clear she believed it. Fully, and the moment Amy rolled her eyes, it was done. Playtime was over. But here's what the episode didn't show. Right before the commercial cut, fans swear they heard Amy mutter something under her breath. It was nearly drowned out by music, but online audio freaks amped the volume and caught what they think was, "You weren't even using it." If that's the line, that's not just tone deaf. It's a loaded truth bomb. Because it turns the entire fight from "did she steal it?" into Did she think she had a right to? After that, the scene cut to commercials, but insiders say the real explosion happened once the cameras dropped to their sides. Production didn't think the footage could air. Too heated, too personal, too serious. The loudest argument came after cameras stopped rolling. According to viewers who were at the live screening event and even some low-level production leaks, Amy allegedly threw a full-on verbal fit. Voices were raised, pacing happened, and Tammy's face turned a shade nobody had seen since season 1. It stopped being about the house and turned into every old wound they'd ever buried. Amy reportedly accused Tammy of twisting everything and trying to ruin her life. Tammy shouted back about taking what wasn't yours. The entire room flipped into chaos. By the time things cooled down, one crew member had stepped between them and a door was slammed hard enough to wobble a tripod. None of that aired. What did make the cut was the aftermath, Amy sitting quietly, no makeup, clearly crying, saying she didn't do anything illegal. And Tammy, stone-faced, refusing to speak on camera for the rest of the episode. Rewatch those scenes with this context and suddenly everything feels different. The pauses, they're not dramatic editing. Those are real silences between people who don't know if they'll hug again. That unspoken hurt, it's not vague, it's choking, and fans have been tearing the moment apart ever since. The body language says even more than the dialogue. Amy shifting in her seat, rubbing one hand into her arm, avoiding direct eye contact. Tammy sitting stiff, arms crossed, making no moves to de-escalate. That's not a conversation. That's war posture. But it's what wasn't said that's screaming the loudest. No one mentioned ownership details, or contracts, or any legal terms. It was all emotional betrayal, taken advantage of, lied to. That kind of language doesn't come from fiction. It comes from someone who feels deeply wronged, and someone else desperately trying to hold their version of the story together. And into all that stepped TikTok. By the next morning, clips exploded. Fan edits, reaction videos, alleged insiders giving half-truths and third-hand takes. One clip that went viral showed Amy in a hoodie, quietly walking into the same house 2 days after filming wrapped. Fans demanded answers. Was she picking up her things? Living there? She didn't speak on it, and neither did Tammy. Another now-deleted TikTok from someone claiming to be a neighbor said loud arguments were heard from that property during editing weeks. Said they saw moving vans parked outside months before the confrontation aired. No proof, no video, but the internet didn't care. It added fuel to the fire. Then came the snapbacks. Amy returned to social media posting throwbacks, funny filters, deflecting questions. Tammy went largely silent except for one story, where she posted lyrics from a song that included the phrase, "Don't cross a soul that made you." No tagging, no context, but it didn't need any. That's what's brutal about family betrayal. It doesn't always look like a lie. Sometimes it looks like silence. Like someone choosing beauty filters over accountability, or another choosing passive rage over resolution. The audience didn't get closure, and maybe they weren't supposed to. Because in this mess, there's no confession that will fix it. No sit-down that erases what it means to fall out with someone who used to be your voice when you couldn't speak. And no matter who touched the house, the documents, or the bank account, everyone watching walked away with a single thought. If this fallout runs any deeper, there might not be a comeback for either sister. Threatening jail time is not something you throw out over Sunday dinner, especially not on national television, and especially not when your family's already teetering between a loyal support unit and a live-action courtroom drama. But that's exactly what happened. Not behind closed doors, not whispered in a voicemail, out loud, with cameras rolling, and it sent shockwaves through both the family and the fans. Tammy looked Amy in the face and said the words that stopped time. "You could go to jail for this." It wasn't screamed. It wasn't dramatic. It was cold, calm, and terrifying, because it didn't sound like an idle threat. It sounded like a fact, like something she'd been told already by someone who knew what they were talking about. Lawyer, friend, producer, no one knows for sure, but from that moment on, the whole mood of the season changed. For the audience, the immediate question was, did she have a case? Was this just revenge theater or something legally weighty lurking behind the scenes? Because in a normal world, you don't go to jail for moving furniture or switching locks. But when you're dealing with a multi-million-dollar property, unclear ownership, and potential forgery or unauthorized sales, those are real offenses. Property misrepresentation, intentional deception, fraud. Even the perception of those things can trigger responses nobody wants to deal with. But was it that serious in this case? Or was Tammy using the threat as a psychological weapon, hoping to shake Amy into confessing, explaining, or at least flinching? Here's the thing that fans keep debating. Tammy's threat came after Amy had been dodging her for days. Not returning texts, not showing up where she said she'd be, calling it bad timing, blaming stress. But when you've got someone who thinks you robbed them of their home, silence doesn't buy peace. It multiplies tension. Once that threat was said out loud, it became public business. The clip went viral. People flooded legal forums asking if it could be real. And actual lawyers, yes, real-life attorneys weighed in on YouTube and Reddit threads saying that if documented ownership was tampered with, there could be consequences. But the problem is, no documentation has been made public. That's where all of this lives, in the space between what might be true and what's publicly provable, which makes it perfect for reality TV, but not so perfect if you're Amy, dealing with thousands of DMs calling you a thief. Tampering, deception, even emotional manipulation. These accusations don't disappear just because no one files a case. On the flip side, you've got people saying Tammy could be out of pocket too, that she lawyered up emotionally, not legally, that she threw jail around the same way siblings threaten to tattle as kids, not based on reality, but retaliation. Because when betrayal wounds you deep enough, your mind looks for the sharpest emotional weapon to throw back. Amy looked broken when the word jail dropped. She didn't snap back. She didn't deny it right away. She just blinked, looked at her lap and asked, "Are you serious right now?" And you could tell she was either terrified or shocked her sister to actually say it, or maybe both. The line between revenge and justice might be as thin as Tammy's patience. And some fans think Tammy knew exactly what she was doing, that the line wasn't a real legal move. It was a pressure tactic to shake control back her way, scare Amy into returning power, restoring balance, or just admitting the truth. That kind of threat doesn't always aim for arrest, it aims for guilt. But how fair is that? If Amy truly didn't sell anything, didn't forge anything, and just made poor communication choices, does she deserve the jail threat hanging over her head in public? If she did do something shady, did she deserve a chance to explain herself before being painted as a criminal? It's not just a legal question, it's a loyalty one, because people don't bring up jail unless they think trust is dead. You don't threaten prison to someone you love unless you've already grieved them in your mind. Tammy was looking across that room like she'd already buried the version of Amy she believed in. And Amy, her silence said she knew exactly why. That's what makes this fracture so irreversible. They didn't fight to fix anything. They fought like people who have already made peace with losing each other. And no amount of reconciliation posts or joint statements after this will erase that look Tammy gave when she said it. That "I want you to hurt the way I do" look. The look of someone who doesn't want an apology, they want accountability with consequences. Whether or not anything legal ever comes of this, that moment changed how fans view Amy. And it changed how Amy views herself. Because once you've been accused of taking something so big, so personal, even if you didn't do it, you're still treated like you might have. And no matter what lawyers say, or what contracts say, or what fans believe, one truth is crystal clear. That threat didn't land in a courtroom. It landed in Amy's heart. It always starts the same way. One comment on a fan page, one slightly blurry photo, one person saying, "Wait a second, wasn't that lamp in Tammy's house?" And before Amy could even blink, the internet did what it does best, turn everything you've ever posted into a courtroom exhibit. At first, the sympathy poured in. Most people had known Amy as the funny, overwhelmed, slightly unfiltered sister who'd always done her best. She wasn't perfect, but she cared. She showed up. And in Tammy's tougher seasons, Amy had often been her only lifeline. That image held strong for a while. But after the mansion accusation aired, something shifted. Fans didn't just watch the drama. They started investigating it. People dug into clips from old seasons, zoomed in on reflection shadows, traced backgrounds from family photos, comparing timestamps. And what they found weren't proof pieces, but just enough inconsistencies to get under everyone's skin. A photo of the mansion's living room posted to Amy's Instagram months before Tammy got out of rehab, when Amy claimed she barely ever went there. A box of kids' toys in a corner that looked eerily similar to what fans had previously seen inside Tammy's guest room. The one she'd once said she planned to turn into a nursery for visiting nieces and nephews. Alone, those details meant nothing. But internet sleuths don't deal in isolation. They pile, stack, cross-reference, and before long, a new storyline had emerged. Not hurt sister caught in a misunderstanding. But maybe Amy knew exactly what she was doing. One screenshot flipped the sympathy switch overnight. It came from an old, not-so-viral vlog that was dug out of YouTube's digital basement. In it, Amy's partner, the same one who's been publicly silent since day one, scans the mansion with the camera. You hear him say, "Look at our place now," right before it cuts. It wasn't a flex, just a comment, but fans watched it like it was a confession. The date, months before the confrontation ever aired. And once that surfaced, the floodgates cracked. Reddit threads exploded with dissection. One thread broke down the angles of every known room in the mansion, comparing lighting patterns from Amy's blog to old stills from Tammy's walkthrough tour. Some fans even slowed frame rates to prove the couch Tammy bought during her lowest recovery week had been swapped with furniture Amy posted in a Mother's Day TikTok. Again, none of this is hard evidence, but it feels true to people emotionally invested. And when viewers develop a parasocial connection to reality stars, trust turns real fast into disappointment. Especially when it feels like someone took advantage while the cameras and the audience were looking elsewhere. And then came the comments. They used to say, "We love Amy for keeping it together." Now they say things like, "She always played dumb, but the way she moved was sneaky." Again, not about her character, but about her choices. The difference matters, because even people who still liked her personality couldn't deny that this didn't smell right anymore. Something about how quiet she stayed, the careful wording in every interview, the repeated use of misunderstanding instead of denial. For most viewers, silence speaks, and Amy's lack of direct clarity started to look calculated, not cautious. Even some of her most loyal fan pages hit pause. Instagram stan accounts that typically flooded their feeds with Amy edits began adding disclaimers. Some wiped old posts entirely. YouTube commentary channels who'd once rushed to her defense now ran hour-long theories about red flag behavior. Every clip from past seasons was suddenly reinterpreted. Generosity now read as guilt shielding, loyalty rewritten as control. And while Tammy didn't post anything new during the storm, her side didn't need to say a thing. Every like, every follow, every quiet repost read like wordless confirmation that she didn't contradict the growing narrative. That maybe she agreed with it. But here's where the situation got complicated. The harder the backlash hit, the more people started asking whether it had gone too far. Not just did Amy mess up, but did the internet want a villain more than they wanted the truth? Because let's be honest, outrage content gets clicks. And when one sister looks like she's climbing out of the ashes and the other looks like she's getting shiny new furniture, the contrast sells. Still, even those more measured voices couldn't defend everything. The screenshots existed. The timeline glitches existed. The comments and captions and deleted posts, they changed how people felt, not because every theory was proven, but because uncertainty, when it drags long enough, starts to feel like guilt. And that's what broke the internet's loyalty. The idea that maybe, just maybe, Amy could have cleared all this up months ago, but didn't. As one fan posted under an old throwback she left up for too long, "We supported you through everything. We believed in you. But if you really did that to Tammy, we're done." No threats, no hate, just disappointment, and that hurts more than any roast. Because when fans turn, they don't just walk away. They rewatch, they rewrite, and they remember everything. When family drama spills into the public, it's no longer personal, it's performative. And once the fallout from the mansion mess hit the wider circle of relatives, the gloves quietly came off. It didn't happen in an explosive Facebook rant or an exclusive television interview. It happened the most 2026 way it possibly could. Through silence, likes, unfollows, and cryptic story posts that spoke volumes without naming names. But the people watching, they connected every one of those dots. What shocked longtime fans wasn't just the tension between Tammy and Amy. That crack was already public. What really rattled viewers was how fast it spread across the rest of the Slaton family. People went quiet who'd always been vocal. Others, who'd rarely shared an opinion, started posting things that felt directly aimed, even when no one's name came up. One cousin posted a black screen that simply said, "Some things you don't forgive, blood or not," removed within hours, screenshotted within minutes. Then came Chris, their usually steady brother, the only one who'd always tried to be neutral, even when Tammy was acting out years ago. Interviewed during a talkback segment, he didn't take a side exactly, but he didn't defend anyone either. When the host asked about the house, his face shifted. He paused, smiled politely, and said, "That's between them." Between them. A phrase that set off alarm bells. Because Chris loves these sisters, and he's not one to dodge. So if even he's distancing himself from the issue, it means the drama's bigger than what we saw on camera. It means someone's guilt feels real inside the family, even if the proof isn't public. And let's not forget how familiar this all feels. Back in earlier seasons, there was a different betrayal. Money missing, demands made. A relative who was cut off after a family business dispute that never made it to full episodes, but was whispered about in deleted side content. In that story, Tammy took the fall for starting the chaos. Now the tables may have turned completely. The callbacks hit harder when the same family patterns show up, years later, wearing different faces. It's that same old sludge, resentment, trust issues, whispers about who's really helping who, but this time it's messier. And it's not lost on the fans. They remember when Amy was the one struggling to be taken seriously, doing everything for Tammy while the rest of the family seemed checked out. Now the pendulum's swung. Suddenly Tammy's in control of the narrative, and Amy's the target. And as this latest fight unfolds, you can practically hear the click of old wounds reopening. Another relative, one who rarely posts, shared a picture of Tammy shortly after the confrontation aired. Nothing dramatic, just a soft caption that read, "Proud of your growth." It didn't mention Amy. Didn't need to. Fans flooded it anyway. Then there was that suspiciously timed YouTube live from another family member, known for keeping things semi-private, who casually referenced people pretending to be something they're not during a Q&A. Sounded innocent, turned messy. Comments flew in asking if they meant Amy. The stream cut off before they answered. The betrayal may have started with the house, but it sure didn't end there. And for those watching between the lines, it's not just the mansion sale. It's everything else that now feels up for questioning. Like who's been telling the truth about certain caregiving responsibilities, who put in actual hours behind the scenes, who supported Tammy emotionally versus who posted for clout. Every piece of past tension is now being reinterpreted under the mansion fiasco microscope. Even timelines of old family emergencies are being rewatched. Fans are asking, who was there? Who left early? Who filmed content instead of actually stepping up? It got so heated online that a fan-run podcast analyzed family attendance at therapy sessions from prior seasons, suggesting that absentee patterns match up with who's quietly unfollowing Amy now. Conspiracy level? Maybe. But engagement numbers don't lie. People care. Deeply. And when their favorite dysfunctional but lovable TV family starts firing passive shots, it stops being about plot. It becomes personal to the audience, too. One of the wildest moments came when Amy posted a throwback birthday video for one of her kids with multiple family members tagged. But not Tammy. Not Chris. Not even the cousin who had posted that vague caption about blood not meaning loyalty. A birthday video, supposed to be joyful. Instead, it looked like a digital seating chart to family loyalty. And yet amid all the noise, no one spelled out what really happened behind closed doors. They've all kept their statements vague. Emotional, non-confrontational, technically, but every subtweet feels aimed. Every birthday untag is judged. Every YouTube comment section becomes another court case. The split is no longer subtle. It's out there. Amy might be clinging to distractions to avoid the narrative swallowing her. Tammy's leaning into strength but keeping her shade surgical. And the rest of the family, they're choosing sides through silence, and that silence, it's thunderous. Because you don't need a public fight. When your family fractures publicly, every post is a microphone. And every click echoes longer than words ever could. You can hate what someone did and still wonder why they did it. That's the uncomfortable space this feud drags everyone into, between disappointment and empathy. Because when you strip the headlines, the edits, the viral TikToks, what's left is one question nobody's answering out loud. What if Amy wasn't being shady? What if she was falling apart? It's easy to see her now and judge, to scroll back through the receipts, the videos, the cryptic captions, to freeze her in one narrative, the sister who allegedly stole a house. That version gets attention. That version feels clean, but nothing about Amy's life in those months was clean. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't strategic. It looked at times like pure emotional survival. She's always been the one holding too much, juggling her health, her kids, her marriage, her online identity. She never got silence. Tammy would break down and Amy would handle it. Money ran tight and Amy picked up side gigs. The boys needed structure and Amy rearranged her whole life. She made chaos look functional. But just because someone functions doesn't mean they're fine. At the time of the alleged house incident, Amy was in the middle of losing her marriage. Not dramatically or loudly. The quiet kind, where everything you've built with someone starts coming undone behind closed doors. The stress of that alone would have cracked most people. Add in 2 toddlers, mounting expenses, health pressures, and the demands of being a reality TV protagonist. And suddenly everything you own starts feeling a little fragile. Controllable stability becomes the most powerful drug on the planet. Then there's the very real possibility. What if Amy didn't sell anything maliciously, but thought she was doing something smart? Something to secure her kids' comfort in a moment where nothing else felt stable. Maybe someone told her this was a temporary transfer, a holding strategy. Maybe she genuinely believed it wasn't hurting anyone because Tammy wasn't living there. Because Tammy, while in recovery, might not even want to come back. And if that was her internal justification, it doesn't make her innocent. But it does make her human. Sometimes, what looks like betrayal is really a cry for help. Look at the signs. The TikToks where she looked exhausted, doing dances she didn't seem to enjoy. The way she avoided addressing anything difficult in the comments, even when thousands of messages begged her to just explain. That blank look in her eyes in some of those mansion clips. Yes, they could be interpreted as guilt. But they might also be burnout. Real, sleep-deprived, head-too-full burnout that turns bad choices into desperate ones. There's trauma underneath both women. Not just the insane pressure of reality TV, but a history of surviving hard situations together. Childhood wasn't easy. Body acceptance wasn't easy. Public judgment slapped both of them from day one. And between that and navigating fame while being vulnerable and imperfect in front of millions, the slingshot effect is real. One sister changes. The other doesn't. One grows stronger. The other feels left behind. That gap creates resentment nobody wants to admit. Fans have seen this before in other public families. When someone finally snaps, it's not always about greed. It can come from fear, exhaustion. That moment when you realize people expect you to hold everything together, even when your hands are shaking. But here's where accountability enters the chat. Emotional breakdowns don't erase responsibility. They don't erase potential damage. Because no matter what Amy felt, the outcome landed hard on someone she called her best friend. Someone who survived isolation, ridicule, near-death health scares, not because of a mansion, but because she finally felt seen. Tammy's house wasn't just bricks, it was redemption. It meant she could live again, on her own terms, her own property, her own name. And if that was stripped away without her full understanding, that wound sticks way deeper than drama ever does. So how do you hold both truths? You recognize that maybe Amy was drowning, that her actions, if part of this were true, came from mess, not malice. But you also honor that Tammy had every right to be devastated. Empathy asks us not to pick a villain, but to understand the pain behind the behavior. Even the worst choices usually grow from fear, not evil. And that's why this scandal hurts viewers so deeply. It doesn't feel like fiction. It feels like every time someone you've loved disappoints you, then tells you it wasn't what it looked like. That's the part that lingers long after the show cuts to black. Not the argument, not the tears, but that silent ache of wondering if the person you trusted was hurting so badly, they didn't see what they were doing to you at all. Because when family strips to its ugliest version, it's not the betrayal that breaks people. It's the silence that comes afterward. The kind filled with questions no apology can clean up. And that's where fans find themselves now, not screaming, not defending, just quietly wondering if Amy ever feels the weight of what it cost Tammy used to be the storm. The chaos. The rolling eyes, the yelling, the drama you knew was coming before she even entered the room. For years, Amy was the calm one, the fixer, the protective sister trying to keep everything from falling apart. But look at them now. Tammy, once written off by critics and even some of her own family, has become the unshakable one, the composed one, and the one who's suddenly holding all the cards. If you rewind the tape, Tammy's comeback started small. A few photos, a quieter tone, visible weight loss, more confidence in her interviews. Less screaming, more reflection. For the first time ever, she wasn't reacting to the world, she was leading it. Rehab didn't just strengthen her body, it cleared her head. And when Tammy's clear-headed, the dynamic flips overnight. Meanwhile, Amy, who once carried the entire emotional weight of their relationship, started slipping. Not just in fan perception, but in presence. She used to be everywhere, holding the camera, supporting Tammy, carrying the show's lighter moments. Now, she's out of frame more often than she's in it. The silence isn't just emotional, it's logistical. Posts are less frequent. Her tone is less bubbly, her defense is higher. For someone who built her brand on relatability, she's suddenly unreachable. Because the Amy fans knew. The one who cried during baby updates and laughed through the mess, not gone, but hidden behind a version of herself that looks heavier with some kind of regret. People aren't sure what it is yet. Guilt, exhaustion, embarrassment. Whatever it is, it's disconnected her. And it made room for Tammy to lead the narrative for the first time in years. This role reversal is wild. Tammy used to be the volatile one, and now she's the one watching clips of Amy's spiral, while choosing to stay silent. That silence, strategic. It says, I know what I know. I don't have to convince anyone anymore. And fans are eating it up. For once, Tammy doesn't have to beg for credibility. Amy, on the other hand, has started feeling the heat from every angle. The glow-up came with a cost, and Tammy's ready to collect. The glow-up isn't just about Tammy's health. It's in her posture, her communication, her authority. For a woman who once couldn't walk unassisted or speak without gasping, this is a power Tammy's never had before. And she's not wasting it on petty arguments. She's using it to stand firm. She's keeping her statements short, her facial expressions unreadable, and her questions cutting. If Amy's hoping for a big emotional blow-up so she has something to respond to, she's not getting it. Tammy's playing chess now. And fans, they're noticing. They post side-by-sides like it's a tale of two different women. Season 2, Tammy versus Now Tammy. Season 6, Amy versus Right Now Amy. They caption them with things like who really grew, and don't sleep on the redemption arc. It's not about perfection, it's about trajectory. One sister rising from ashes, the other spiraling in ambiguity. What's wild is, Tammy has all the pieces she needs to destroy Amy further, and she hasn't. She hasn't done press tour, hasn't dropped receipts. She sat with self-control most people didn't think she had, and that control is what scares people the most. Because when the loud person goes quiet, that's when the threat feels real. Amy, once the darling of the internet, is now playing defense. Walking through comments that used to root for her with a new rhythm, one filled with questions that don't go away. When are you going to tell the truth? What happened to Tammy's house? Why are you acting like nothing's wrong? And she rarely answers. Or when she does, it reads empty, safe, like someone managing fallout, not speaking from her heart. And maybe that's the real heartbreak for fans. They rooted for both of them, not as individuals, but as survivors. As sisters who'd gone through things together and made it through the fire. But now that only one of them seems to be owning the consequences, the bond doesn't look like a bond anymore. It looks like a shift in power that can't be undone. Role reversals like this don't happen cleanly. Amy's pain is visible, even if it's not loudly addressed. She knows she's lost control of the narrative. And more than that, she's possibly lost the one person who backed her no matter how bad she got it from the world. And that's the cruel irony of this entire thing. Tammy fought her way back from the darkest place anyone can imagine, looking for someone to celebrate that victory with. But the person she needed most may have been the one who undermined it when she wasn't looking. And every day Tammy says nothing, Amy's guilt, fair or not, gets a little bit louder. This one hit too close to home for people. It wasn't just about a house. Not really. For the fans who have followed every messy season, every fight, every tear, and every hospital visit, this felt like watching a friendship they were a part of crash in real time. The betrayal wasn't on screen. It was in the hearts of the viewers who had trusted these sisters to always, somehow, find their way back to each other. That's why the reaction online wasn't just anger, it was grief. Pure, emotional loss. Something about watching Amy and Tammy fall apart felt personal, like a breakup between two people whose chaos we endured because their love, at the end of the day, always pulled through. This time, it doesn't feel like it will. Fans who have been there since season 1 remember when Tammy could barely speak without Amy finishing her sentence. When Amy made sacrifices no one acknowledged, making sure Tammy was fed, supported, filmed, even when she didn't feel like it. And they also remember Tammy turning on that support. The blow-ups, the insults, the manipulations, but through it all, they had each other. So when Amy was suddenly accused of crossing a line that serious, selling the one thing Tammy had worked to call her own, it crushed something in the audience. Like all those years of hard-earned love had finally rusted over. And now people are left wondering, do either of them know how to fix it? The psychology behind betrayal is more complicated than people want to admit. When someone you love hurts you, it breaks everything you used to feel safe around. That shared language, that inside joke, that belief they'd never harm you, not really. After that, nothing sounds or looks the same again. And what makes betrayal from family worse? There are no clean exits. Friends can ghost. Lovers can block each other. But when it's your sister, that pain sits with you. Through birthdays, holidays, hospital visits, tabloid headlines, and yes, even successful rehab milestones. Forgiveness isn't free, and fans are demanding a real receipt. That's where the public sits now. Suspended between hope and hesitation. Some want reconciliation. They want to see a sit-down, an apology, not a vague social media one. Not a "we're working on things behind the scenes" press answer. Fans want a reckoning. Honesty that doesn't come hand-wrapped in PR polish. Others say the damage is too deep. That any attempt to move on would feel forced, fake for cameras, done for ratings. And sadly, they're not wrong to feel that way. Because while emotional recovery is possible, trust rebuilds like a house caught in a storm, piece by piece. And if the foundation isn't right anymore, does it even make sense to keep building? Justice, in a situation like this, gets tricky. There's likely no courtroom coming. No badge, no lawsuit heavy enough to fix what's collapsed. But in the realm of public sentiment, justice looks like truth, like ownership. Like someone stepping forward and admitting where they messed up, not because it's required, but because it's the right thing to do. Amy hasn't done that yet. And for better or worse, the longer she waits, the colder that window gets. The audience isn't as forgiving as it used to be. They've watched enough reality arcs to know when someone is spinning. They want accountability to feel raw, not rehearsed. And they want Tammy to get a redemption that doesn't have to be shared if it wasn't respected. But even as the audience splits, even as comments clash in every post and YouTube reaction thread, there's still a quiet group, maybe the original fans, who just want to believe this is survivable. Because if Amy and Tammy can patch this up, if they can own every messy, human mistake, that won't just save their dynamic. That would mean something for every person who's loved someone the wrong way and didn't know how to come back from it. That's the real lesson in loyalty. Not in how perfectly you love someone, but how honestly you rebuild after the damage is done. If they can get there, the show doesn't just recover. It redeems itself. But if they don't, one truth remains. Betrayal doesn't always end with constant yelling or headlines or court orders. Sometimes it ends with a whispered, "I don't trust you anymore." And there's no editing trick that hides that look. And now here we are. The dust has settled. But you can still taste it in the air. No explosive legal battle. No courtroom photo ops. No contracts leaked online, despite fans begging for that final, undeniable proof. What we have isn't resolution, it's resignation. Even as the cameras wrap, the fans scroll, and the headlines fade a little, the question still lingers quietly like a bad echo. Did Amy really do it? Because whatever happened to that house, whatever names were signed, whatever side deals were made, one thing's obvious now. The damage reached far beyond the property lines. Tammy isn't storming around or shouting anymore. She doesn't have to. Her silence speaks more than any viral TikTok or stitched reaction video. She's carried herself with a control that no one anticipated, especially from someone who used to implode at the first hint of betrayal. But now, she's not chasing an apology. She's building a life that doesn't require one. Amy, on the other hand, remains in emotional limbo. If she's still hurting, she isn't saying much. If she regrets anything, she hasn't said it. And that awkward float between denial and closure is what's keeping the fandom restless. She's posted like nothing happened, smiled through things that no longer feel warm. And it's that detachment, intentional or not, that cemented the shift in how people see her now. What's worse isn't the accusation. It's the feeling that one of reality TV's most loyal sisters may have fractured something vital, and won't, or can't, fully own it. This is not the kind of scandal that vanishes over time. Legal documents may never go public. No arrest was made. No lawsuit surfaced. All the ambiguity remains locked behind closed doors. But emotionally, everyone saw exactly what happened. And once loyalty burns, it's almost impossible to put those ashes back together into something that resembles trust. It's not about a mansion. Not anymore. It's about Tammy losing a safe space and Amy losing her role as the safe sister. It's about two women who survived the worst of their lives together, until one of them made a move the other couldn't forgive. Whether that move was calculated, naive, or desperate depends on who you ask. And maybe that's the point. Some betrayals don't end in explosions. They end in silence. Quiet dinners apart, ignored birthdays, texts that never get answered. And for the first time in years, the Slaton sisters feel like they're living in separate stories. But don't be fooled into thinking this franchise just lost steam. If anything, the emotional fallout is still reverberating stronger than ever. Because while one sister rebuilds her life, with strength, clarity, and a glow-up no one saw coming, the other's still lost in the noise of everything she won't say. And there's one last truth we all have to sit with. Secrets always surface. Maybe not today, maybe not on camera, but in this genre, truth always finds a way to claw out. So when the next clip rolls, the next interview drops, or the next TikTok accidentally reveals something you weren't supposed to see, remember where it started. A house, a sister, a signature, and a silence that said everything. Think this was wild? Wait till you hear what Christine had brewing right under everyone's nose.